In Shenzhen, one neighborhood contains 22 electronics markets, selling more than 1 million different components inside just 1.45 square kilometers. Not finished phones or laptops. The screens, sensors, circuit boards, batteries, and tiny motors inside them. One robotics company sourced 100 key parts here in 3 days. A week later, it had a prototype ready for mass production. This is Huaqiangbei. It sits inside something much larger, a dense network of factories, tool makers, designers, and specialist suppliers spread across the Pearl River Delta. Shenzhen is usually called China's Silicon Valley, but that comparison may be backwards. Silicon Valley became powerful by creating software and financing ideas. Shenzhen became powerful by turning ideas into physical products. In 2025, the World Intellectual Property Organization ranked the Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Guangzhou region the world's leading innovation cluster. So why can the rest of the world not simply copy it? Because Shenzhen is not really a story about cheap labor. It is about what happens when an entire city becomes a factory for innovation. To understand that system, go back to China's southern border in 1979. The familiar story says Shenzhen was a fishing village. That is too simple. The area was part of Bao'an County with centuries of settlement and more than 300,000 residents, but it was overwhelmingly rural and dramatically poorer than Hong Kong across the border. On one side was a far more closed, state-planned economy. On the other was one of Asia's busiest centers of trade, finance, and manufacturing. In 1979, Bao'an County was reorganized as Shenzhen City. The following year, Shenzhen became one of China's first special economic zones. Inside the zone, Beijing allowed experiments restricted elsewhere. Foreign investment was welcomed. Firms received tax advantages and could import equipment more easily. Local officials had unusual freedom to approve projects and build infrastructure. Hong Kong had capital, customers, trading networks, and experienced factory managers, but its land and labor were becoming expensive. Shenzhen offered space, workers, and access to the Chinese mainland. Factories moved north. Hong Kong often supplied investment, designs, and overseas orders. Shenzhen supplied industrial land and the factory floor. Then workers arrived from across China. Shenzhen's population did not simply grow, it was assembled through migration. Early Shenzhen was not producing glamorous inventions. It assembled garments, toys, watches, appliances, and basic electronics. Much of the work was repetitive, low paid, and dependent on foreign orders. But every order left something behind. Workers learned quality control, technicians maintained imported machinery, local firms learned tooling, mold making, and production scheduling, suppliers appeared for components and packaging. Logistics companies moved finished goods through Hong Kong and Shenzhen's expanding ports. The important unit was no longer a single factory, it was the network forming around it. A modern electronic product may require hundreds of specialized inputs. Its enclosure, circuit board, battery, display, and camera module can all come from different firms. When those firms are spread across countries, every mistake creates shipping delays and new contracts. In Shenzhen, many problems can be solved with a phone call or a short drive. That makes the feedback loop unusually fast. A failed component can be replaced, a casing adjusted, and a circuit board redesigned. A factory can identify an unmanufacturable prototype before a company wastes months on it. This is Shenzhen's real product, not a drone, a phone, or an electric car, but the speed at which physical products can improve. The clearest expression of this system appeared in Huaqiangbei. The neighborhood began as an electronics industrial area. In 1988, the SEG electronics market opened to address a shortage of components. Office buildings and factory outlets gradually became a maze of specialized markets where buyers could compare dozens of suppliers in one afternoon. During the 2000s, this market helped create the Shanzai or copycat phone industry. Small teams used standard chipsets and available components to produce unbranded phones or imitate famous models. Some of this business involved counterfeiting and clear violations of intellectual property. It should not be romanticized, but copying also became an industrial training system. Small firms learned how products were assembled, which components could be substituted, and how designs change for different customers. Some added louder speakers, multiple SIM card slots, or larger batteries. The goal was rarely to invent a completely new category. It was to modify an existing product quickly, cheaply, and for a specific market. This created technicians and entrepreneurs who understood the journey from component sourcing to retail. Shenzhen's reputation for copying was real. So was the knowledge accumulated through it. The next stage began when local firms stopped merely assembling products and started controlling more of the technology inside them. Huawei was founded in 1987 as a sales agent for telephone switches. By 1990, it was developing its own technology and would become a major telecommunications equipment company. BYD began in 1995 making rechargeable batteries, later moved into electronics, and entered the car industry in 2003. Battery and manufacturing knowledge became the foundation of its electric vehicle business. Tencent, founded in 1998, showed that Shenzhen was becoming more than a factory city. Software, digital platforms, and finance were growing alongside hardware. DJI was established in 2006. Its drones combined motors, sensors, cameras, batteries, software, and precise manufacturing capabilities Shenzhen could provide within one ecosystem. These companies differed, but they benefited from the same conditions: migrant talent, intense competition, fast suppliers, global trade, and a government pushing toward higher value industries. The state did not disappear as private companies grew. Its role changed. Shenzhen established a science and technology industrial park in 1985. It invested in ports, universities, industrial zones, and research institutions, then directed support toward semiconductors, robotics, electric vehicles, and renewable energy. Yet Shenzhen's research system remains unusually corporate. In 2024, businesses accounted for more than 93% of the city's research and development spending. That is important because the laboratory and the production line are rarely far apart. Silicon Valley has advantages Shenzhen cannot easily reproduce: world-leading universities, deep venture capital markets, software talent, and a record of creating new technology companies. But its system is optimized for a different kind of innovation. A software product can be updated through the internet. Hardware must pass through materials, machines, factories, and logistics. Every physical object contains decisions that never appear in the original design. That is why building one advanced factory is not the same as rebuilding Shenzhen. The first obstacle is time. The Pearl River Delta's knowledge accumulated over 4 decades. Toolmakers know which designs break. Factory managers know where production slows. Suppliers know which components are truly available. This knowledge lives in people, routines, and relationships. It cannot be downloaded with plans for a new industrial park. The second obstacle is density. Factories become more productive when repair shops, distributors, testing laboratories, and logistics providers operate nearby. Each specialist makes the others more useful. The third is scale. Large orders justify better machinery, while thousands of smaller customers support workshops willing to produce prototypes and short runs. The fourth is labor. Not simply inexpensive labor, but experienced engineers, machinists, buyers, technicians, and production managers. Advanced manufacturing depends on them as much as on famous founders. The fifth is coordination. Shenzhen combined national policy, local experimentation, innovation, private entrepreneurship, foreign capital, and infrastructure. Subsidizing one factory is easier than coordinating a regional economy for decades. Manufacturing can still grow elsewhere. The United States retains strengths in aerospace, biotechnology, advanced chips, and industrial software. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Germany possess capabilities Shenzhen still depends on. But an isolated factory is not an ecosystem, and a collection of subsidies is not a supply chain. Shenzhen's model also carries costs that celebratory stories often ignore. Its rise depended on millions of migrant workers, many living in factory dormitories or crowded urban villages. Household registration limited access to some services, while long hours and insecure work placed much of the risk on labor. Shenzhen's speed was not automatic. It was produced by people working under intense pressure. Shenzhen is also no longer cheap. As wages, land, and housing costs rose, labor-intensive production moved into neighboring cities, inland China, and countries such as Vietnam. American export controls restrict China's access to some advanced semiconductor technology. Foreign companies are reducing dependence on Chinese supply chains, while intellectual property and political risks discourage concentration in one city. But these pressures have not simply emptied the city of industry, they have changed the kind of industry it wants. Basic assembly can move, while Shenzhen keeps research, product design, advanced components, and supply chain management. The system also extends into Dongguan, Guizhou, Guangzhou, and the wider Pearl River Delta. Shenzhen is becoming less like a single factory and more like the control center of a regional manufacturing network. By 2025, Shenzhen's economy had reached 3.87 trillion yuan, with strategic emerging industries generating 43% of it. The city produced electric vehicles, drones, industrial robots, telecom equipment, and smartphones at enormous scale. The old explanation was that Shenzhen won because China had cheap workers. That explanation is no longer enough. Shenzhen won because manufacturing created knowledge. Knowledge attracted companies, companies improved suppliers, and those suppliers made the next generation faster. Its advantage is a loop: idea, component, prototype, factory, customer, and then back to the next idea. Competitors can purchase machines, offer tax breaks, and build industrial parks. They cannot immediately purchase 40 years of industrial memory. Shenzhen is not unbeatable. Export controls, rising costs, and political tension could weaken it. Other regions will build clusters of their own, but copying Shenzhen's skyline or opening an electronics market will not be enough. Success requires patient investment in suppliers, technicians, infrastructure, and years of incremental learning. Silicon Valley can copy a factory. It may even build a better one. What it cannot quickly copy is the city surrounding it, and that is why calling Shenzhen China's Silicon Valley has the story backwards. Shenzhen did not become powerful by imitating Silicon Valley. It became powerful by building the parts Silicon Valley had allowed to disappear.